Hey there, everybody. Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness, here with your Autism Fitness Tuesday training. And if you, yes, you are ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, join the movement for movement and deliver the most meaningful, effective fitness and adapted PE programs, whether you are in a home, classroom, if you are in a gym, in a therapeutic clinical environment, then the Autism Fitness Level 1 certification is for you. There is a link in the description of this video below. So in this Tuesday training, I want to cover one of the most challenging exercises for our athletes, nonetheless teaching a very important movement pattern that is the hinge. Hinge is dissimilar from a squat in that it is kind of the picking up things movement. And it is difficult to teach because it's not the most automatic movement pattern for our athletes. If you look at toddlers learning to walk, they can squat down and remain in that position. The hinge is a little bit different because we have to have a much straighter, much more braced spine in that hinge position moving towards the ground. I'll explain that a little bit more later after we go through these videos. Now, because we have so much compromised movement and spinal instability in our athletes with autism and related neurodiversities, it is critical that we take a very careful, very systematic approach to teaching the hinge position. Of course, this over time is going to lead to picking things up off the floor safely. It's going to lead towards better postural positioning, and it could indeed lead to less possibility of injury, particularly to the low back, as our athletes age. So this is both a short-term and a long-term process. And the way that we introduce the hinge is with the medicine ball scoop throw. So if you know a little bit about the Autism Fitness power exercises, the 3 medicine ball throws that we include at the base level are our push throw, our overhead throw, and the scoop throw. And the scoop throw is by far the most challenging for the majority of athletes because of that hinge position that they have to learn. Now, the scoop throw, when performed correctly, is using the hips and the posterior chain, the muscles of the back, to launch the ball forward. And the ball is coming between the knees or between the legs, being pulled back almost like a kettlebell swing, if you're familiar with that exercise, and being propelled forward. It's predominantly a low body exercise. The arms are just holding onto the ball. What we see in compensatory movement, where it's not quite there yet, is the athlete using the arms and only the arms to propel the ball forward. So I'm going to show an example of that first here. So I open up my video. So oftentimes what we will see is an athlete who is compensating, who is performing an approximation of an exercise. So here you see this scoop throw looks pretty good to start. So where we want to start with the athlete, we want to start with those feet open. Go back a little bit here, those feet open. So it's a pretty good starting position. And this athlete is performing the scoop throw at a pretty good approximation. Here you see a lot of arm movement there. And that's something that we eventually want to transfer to the legs when they're doing that scoop throw. So we want the legs moving the most on that scoop throw. So you can see here now, he's setting up. You want to set up a little wider than shoulder width here. And that is not bad. So this is what we'd call an approximation of this scoop throw. And you notice he's starting with this last throw here to use mostly the arms instead of the legs to propel that ball forward. And that's why we want to start off with a light medicine ball. If we go too heavy, the athlete is going to compensate and we're going to see a breakdown in performance. So we cannot start a hinge movement heavy with an athlete, any athlete, who is not able to hold that neutral spine position, which we go into in the level 1 certification, and able to hinge with the hips. This is a more advanced movement that we go into again in a level 1 certification, because you got to get this right in order to coach it effectively. Now, again, this is a pretty good approximation. You see, that's what we're looking for, right? And then we see on that next throw a little more arm movement. You can see where the ball is falling a little before it reaches its intended target. All right. So that is an example of an athlete who is definitely definitely on track to performing that scoop throw independently. However, he needs more practice, more coaching with it as well. And the way that we practice that, the way that we coach it, is going to depend on where the athlete is with that exercise right now. Oftentimes, if an athlete is only using their arms and we see no leg movement, we see no hinge whatsoever, then we have to provide some type of physically guided prompt and actually facilitate the movement for the athlete, because they're not just going to get it with a mirror or visual prompt. So athlete number 2 that I'm going to show you here, so we're right in the middle of this scoop though here, you can see what he's doing. He's loading up at the hips. So this is looking really good. That's what we want. Are the hands coming behind the knees and using the hips to propel that ball forward. Now with this athlete, what's interesting is he's definitely using more hip hinge, not on that one, but using more hip hinge to get that ball across. You see, he's not standing all the way up. So he's staying in this low athletic position, which is actually more difficult. You see, he's rearranging his feet, more advantageous position there. So with this athlete, he is farther along with this scoop throw, and there are still always things, there are still always minor improvements that we can make on that exercise, on that scoop throw. So in his case, he's got that athletic position. We'll check this out one more. That athletic position, so feet on the floor, rooted, good bend in the knees, keeping the hips a little bit lower. So we're looking at about a quarter squat position, definitely on task. So with both of these athletes, we're not really taking off-task behavior into consideration, because it's really a non-factor for these two athletes. Of course, oftentimes in autism fitness programming, we're talking about elevating the level or maintaining the level of motivation for our athletes. With both of these guys, not an issue in the least. What we're talking about now is optimizing the movement, because it's not just about the exercise, it's about coaching and cueing the exercise so that the athlete gets the absolute most that they possibly can out of it. So for both these guys, again, the motivation isn't the factor. It's how are we coaching in a way where they can perform this scoop throw to the best possible ability level. See, right here, head is in a good position. What we want, and you can see right there, that throw, you can see where things break down are when the athlete just uses the arms to throw the ball. When he gets it back behind his hips, much straighter and much more powerful throw here. And there are some very specific ways that we coach the scoop throw as we do all of our exercises, so that the athlete can understand and then perform the exercise with increased accuracy and better movement. And these are the things that you get out of your level 1 certification. So the key takeaways here are that, number 1, scoop throws are what we use to introduce that hinge movement. Number 2, it's important because it's teaching our athletes how to pick things up off of the floor and how to use that posterior chain, the muscles in the back, effectively and safely. And number 3, that the scoop throw is going to likely be the most challenging of all of the medicine ball exercises, and there are very specific steps that you have to take in order to teach it effectively. All right, so if you are already integrating the scoop throw into your programs, this may be the opportunity to optimize it. And also, these are the key things, the key components to look for when you are analyzing an athlete doing the scoop throw. Well, I hope that's been helpful for you. I'm Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness, leading the movement for movement. And if you are ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, head on over to autismfitness.com. You can register, you can go through your self-paced coursework, and then you can meet me for your virtual live practical held throughout the year so that you get the hands-on, brains-on training that you and your athletes deserve. Thanks for watching.